Welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. We have Kristoff Merrill with us today, and
Hey,
his
everybody.
specialty is helping people implement patterns that serve them forever. And I'm fascinated because I've got good patterns and I've got bad patterns.
Well, welcome to the club, Scott.
So tell us about yourself, how you do this. The floor is yours. Let her rip.
Oh man. All right. Well, so I'm gonna start with this, right? Um, if you let's use the analogy, right? Of you're watching a truck come up to a bridge. The truck, right? You could tell the truck's pretty heavy. The truck starts driving on the bridge, and then all of a sudden, right, you start seeing the bridge, kind of buckle just a little bit. You start seeing the bridge maybe kind of like shimmy or shake or a little bit, right? And you can see the face of the driver is like sheer terror because he can see what's about to happen like right below him. um and he's pretty much pot committed at this point, though. He's got to drive forward. He can't back up. You got to keep moving forward. And so he decides to drive forward, and what inevitably happens, the bridge breaks, truck falls, total loss, right? um why do we blame the tires of the truck? Why do we blame the speed limit on the road? Right? We will come up with all of these, and again, I could go through the litany of them. Um, what I see, so what I've devoted, I'm going to say I've devoted my life to kind of like observing and then also studying, um, is I think most people's habits are what I consider like fair weather friends. We create habits kind of like in a vacuum, right? Um, Most people I know decided, New Year's was coming up, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. Did you make a New Year's resolution, Scott?
No, and I haven't.
No.
No, and I don't know. I don't remember ever having made
Good. Good, because I think they are a wonderful way to set you up for failure.
Yeah.
Because here's why. We kind of come up with this like vision in our mind of, if everything aligns, right? Like if it, in a perfect world, um, I'll use one that I've done many, many times. I'm gonna be in better shape.
Yeah.
But usually I don't. Usually I'm not as vague as that, right? Like usually it's related to, I want to lose 35 pounds, or I want to fit into size 34 jeans or something. Again, very very specific. Um, and then I create conditions under which I'm going to go to the gym. And the conditions end up looking like this. Um, if I fall asleep at 9 o'clock, if I end up staying up until like 11, well, then, the gym's off because I'm going to be tired. So I need to get, X number hours of sleep. Then I'm going to lay out my shoes, and they're going to be like, they're not going to be old shoes. They're going to be brand new shoes. And then I'm going to have my socks, and I'm going to have my, my workout clothes. And then I'm going to drive over to the gym, and there's not going to be any traffic. There's not going to be any problems, no detours. We create this like perfect, I'm going to say no stress tested environment in which we will commit to do the thing. But what usually happens? Real life, real life, like smacks us in the face, right? Um,
True that.
our dog, like I have, my wife and I and our kids have a dog, and sadly, my wife keeps telling me, stop feeding the dog popcorn. The dog isn't supposed to have popcorn. Um, but he loves popcorn. Like it's this fun, like, and I love popcorn. So I get to eat it, and I get to kind of throw it, and he gets to play this game, right? And catch and all that kind of stuff. He usually ends up throwing up or having an accident. I'm going to say, within 10 hours, every time I eat or feed him popcorn. So knowing that, why would I feed him popcorn before I decided I was going to go to the gym? Because then I'm gonna have to wake up early. He's gonna have, I'm gonna have to take him out. Like all of these scenarios. So I like to look at habits as most people create habits that are not battle tested. They are not built under pressure.
Right.
They are
Right.
built for calm. They are built for almost picturesque conditions, right? Like, I could see the sun coming up, glistening on this, like nowhere in reality does that version live other than in our minds or on Instagram. And so I think true habits don't survive the pressure.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
pressure. And so therefore, what do we, right? Like I think most of us kind of like run the gamut of feeling like I keep I kind of like keep having the same 7 problems. I don't know why, but I keep having the same darn 7 problems. Because what we have is we don't have habits, we have routines. We have a default mentality. This is what I do when X happens. And we default back into it. Um, and that becomes right. Like we say, oh, I'm going to be better at responding to this, right? Like I don't know a single person who loves criticism. I don't know a single person who loves it, right? Um, but isn't like when I think about comics, so I love watching comics, simply because they're willing to go in front of like an audience, right? I mean, they are making kind of like their routine, their habit, their, whatever, very, very public. They're taking their craft very seriously. They're they're standing up on a stage in front of people that may or may not have something to drink, that are may or may not be in a good mood, that may or may not think the joke is funny, and they kind of do their best. They tell the joke. They know some jokes, like they have kind of like their canon. Those 8 jokes are going to kill it, and I'm going to test these 5 new jokes. And they have to be willing to absolutely bomb to get the feedback. Oh, those jokes, the way in which I told them, not necessarily the jokes themselves, but the way in which I told it doesn't work. How about us? When do we get that kind of feedback, right? About either our habits, our routines, um, our performance, right? So I typically deal with people that are wanting to be better than they currently are.
Right.
Some would call those high achievers. I don't call them high achievers because I think that name is kind of goofy. I look at those people as they're simply progress motivated, meaning if they can be better today than they were yesterday, that's what their goal is. They simply
Right.
want to be better today than they were yesterday. That's it. And so if we look at the progress, if we create habits, if we create patterns, if we create routines, if we create, traditions, because there's lots of words that we've kind of created that are essentially the same thing as habits, um, that then become our fair weather friends, but they're not tested under pressure, right? They're
Right.
that bridge that wasn't engineered, that
Right.
you didn't actually take the time and say, okay, how is this habit going to work um, when there is stress applied? Because stress seems to be applied from all angles every single day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's coming from your spouse. Sometimes it's coming from those that you're at work. Sometimes it might be coming internally. You might be right, like causing the stress. Everything in the outworld might be just fine, but you're stressing out about something, and so therefore the situation is never going to be perfect, and therefore you're left kind of wanting you're expecting to do more with less. The problem is your default habits aren't going to get you there. They haven't
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
What I would say is this, they haven't got you there yet.
Right.
So I know it doesn't sound good, but your nice habits that don't do anything for you aren't very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you go about um, identifying I guess the two big questions are one is how do you identify the new habits that you need? And
Mm-hmm.
two, how do you battle test them so that they survive life?
So fantastic question. Um, the easiest way for me to answer the first question. So how do you identify what habits you need? This is a bit of a pill to swallow, right? I think we know individually what needs to change. I think if you were to examine your life, if you were to look at it like, right? If you were to kind of like take a step back and say, okay, my name is Scott. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. This is what I keep running into the same 7 problems. Oh man, you know what? If I just did X, I think instinctually, I think most of us already have a very good either idea or conception about what needs to change. The problem is change in and of itself is kind of like getting out of the hot tub when it's let's say 62 degrees outside. Those kind of comfort habits that we've formed, those habits that we have I like to call them default habits, right? They they feel so good. So when we know what we need to do different, it's that like kind of like brisk air on our arms where all of a sudden we get the goosebumps. And what's our first immediate thought? Get back in the hot tub. Like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Why are you trying to change the status quo? Right. Um, so I use this as an example. If your habits um, are what I would consider pressure tested. So I had a perfect experience of this on the opposite side. So um, I I'm a weird guy. I like really nice shoes. Um, like I have like wide, like almost like wide Flintstone flat feet, right? And so my shoes, because again, you're walking everywhere. Like I'm really like a creature of habit. And so once I find like a brand or a size or kind of like the fit of a shoe that I really really like, I tend to buy quite a few of them. Um, because it's less of a decision that I have to make, right? To be able to like, well, I already know that I like the shoe fits, I like how it's comfortable, I like the look of it, whatever. Um, and I have sadly elevated to the point where, and again, this is not a humble brag by any means. This is just kind of like the reality of it. Um, my favorite pair of shoes costs over $1,000.
Wow.
Crazy, right? I get it. Totally understand. Like that's nuts. So, um, many months ago, this was probably about a year and a half ago, um, I was shooting some video. And I have kind of like a regular day pair of those same shoes that I wear pretty much every day, all day long. And I do my best to take care of them, but they might have, some mud splashed on them. They might, the shoelaces don't look, absolutely perfect. And I have a pair of shoes that are kind of like my video shoes. So the video shoes, like I rub them with like a baby wipe. I mean, they are immaculate. Like, and eventually those will become my regular shoes, and we'll just kind of transition through.
Right.
So, um, I'm shooting these videos at a studio, and I'm going to leave, and I kind of took all my stuff out with me. I put my shoes up on the roof of my car,
Uh-oh.
and I packed yeah, you heard it right. You know right where this is going. And then I drove off. And sadly, I didn't think about those shoes at all because I have multiple pairs. I have, they come in an odd orange colored box, and I have a bunch of them in the closet. Like I didn't even sadly notice that they had fallen off of the top of the car, and I continued driving. So
Wow.
here's where what I call an automatic habit kicked in. So a gentleman by the name of Val was driving along the road very shortly after me, happened to find a almost destroyed orange box, um, with some shoes that are kind of like in their little own little like protective sleeves. Um, and he finds them on the road. And so he collects the box and he collects the shoes and he goes home. His granddaughter comes over and she says, Grandpa, do you have any idea like what shoes those are? Those are really expensive shoes. Like we could probably sell them on eBay for, you know, 7, 8, 900 bucks. And all of a sudden he goes, whoa, like that's a lot of money. Okay, you know what? So they start the process and they start listing them online. They took some photos of them. One of the shoes had gotten run over, so they cleaned it up. And then they took some photos and they were about to list it on eBay where Val's automatic habit kicked in. His gut said, if I look in the box and there is by chance an address, a phone number, some way I can identify whose shoes these are, it is my responsibility to return them to that person. No questions asked, no compensation needed. So he looks in the box, and because of how you buy those particular shoes, they kind of like, I mean, they almost feel like you need a blood sample in order to purchase them. And so all of my contact information was listed on a receipt. So not only could he see exactly how much I paid for those shoes, he could see, and again, it didn't have everything. It didn't have my address, but it had my email address and my name. So I got an email address probably 4 days after I lost those shoes that simply said, did you lose a pair of shoes on such and such road? I went down to my car, looked in the trunk, the box was gone. I was like, oh, so maybe I took it up, went upstairs, looked, uh-oh, those shoes are missing. Now, just because I like very expensive shoes does not mean that I like telling my wife that I lost a very expensive pair of shoe. Definitely did not want to have that conversation. So all of a sudden, I look at it like almost like a hostage negotiation. That person has my shoes. What is it going to cost me to get them back? Because at all costs, as long as I don't spend as much as the shoe cost, I'm technically coming out ahead on this deal because then I don't have to buy a new pair. So we agree to meet. We meet at kind of like I'm going to call it like a train station, a commuter, kind of area. When he pulled up, I noticed a couple of things. That the amount of my shoes was kind of a big deal. That was a lot of money. Number two, he was very friendly, came over, walked over, handed me the shoebox, apologized that they had been run over, informed me that he had cleaned them, and simply said, I'm really glad I found out whose they were, because I just want to let you know I was this close to listing them on eBay so we could have a great Christmas. So I had previously brought some cash with me, and I was like, hey, like, let me give you some money for returning these. He refused. Absolutely. He said, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for the effort, but that's the right thing to do. Now, whether you agree or disagree, that's not what we're talking about here. That habit that Val had kicked in when the pressure started cooking.
Right.
When all of a sudden it was like time to list those shoes on eBay and sell $700 pairs of shoes. Like, that's crazy. I'll be the first to admit that's nuts. All of a sudden that habit kicked in. You know what? If I can determine whose they are, I owe it to that person to return them. Some would consider this a form of integrity. Some would consider this a form of, treating others the way that you would want to be treated, whatever. I look at that as a habit that has been decided before the pressure hits. Right. So oftentimes, right, we create habits kind of like in a vacuum, when in reality, what we need to do is we need to think, how will this habit survive when that pressure lands? Um, what kind of dad am I going to be when my 15-year-old daughter, who I told she can't drive until she gets her license, well, she took the car that night and ended up running it into a light pole,
Oh no.
right? I have a chance to like, right, be a total jerk. I have the ability, if that habit that I have attempted to create isn't what I would consider automatic, aren't we going to just kind of default to what I would consider very, very bad habits where we're reactionary? We're just lashing out, right? I can't believe you took the car. And we kind of go in with a little bit of, maybe some vinegar, when in reality, what does she need at that moment? She already knows she messed up. She already knows, there are consequences to her actions. She already gets all of that. But what does she need in that moment? She needs empathy. Do you know how hard empathy is in the moment when your daughter took your car and banged it into a light pole? It's really hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. Um, but ultimately, right? What lesson does that give her and does that give you? Well, if we're like, so I love the book Extreme Ownership by I don't remember the two guys' names, but Jocko Willink is one of the writers. Um, I love the concept of extreme ownership. I'll use this example. Who left the keys at home? Well, I did. So I kind of provided the means for her to take. Who's been spending countless hours teaching her how to drive? I have. Who's gotten her excited and interested about, kind of that first, moment when you get your license and you get the freedom that I remember? Well, I have. Haven't I almost trained her to be excited to drive? I would have to own that. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that acknowledgement then provides like a lot of opportunity for me to kind of look internally and go, what would have happened if I would have simply taken the keys with me? It would have eliminated the possibility for her to be tempted beyond her means and drive that car. Because I took the car the very first time when I was 13. My dad had spent a whole lot of time teaching me how to drive. It was a stick back in the old days where that was like a thing. I don't even know if there are cars that are stick shift anymore.
There are.
Um, but like that was a thing to learn how to drive it. And so I was allowing my ego to kind of get out of the way. And I was kind of bragging to my friends because I could take them around in the neighborhood. We never crossed a busy street because my dad had never taught me how to do that yet. So we literally kind of drove around in the neighborhood for, 1 to 2 hours until they got back home from their movie that they usually went on Friday nights. Well, when dad comes home because the movie he wanted to go to was sold out and mom ends up going out with friends, he comes home early and his car's missing. Oh boy, right? And there were consequences for that. And because of that, that was where for me the habit was, or the idea, I'll say the idea because I didn't have kids when I was that age, luckily. That was where the idea came that I said, I don't want to react the way that my dad did. And again, I'm not placing judgment. I'm simply identifying a point in time where I can look back and say, whoa, I don't, if my son or daughter ever does something similar, I want to react different. I want to have a different habit associated with how I handle kind of like, I'm going to call them family catastrophes. Have you ever had a son or a daughter or a friend or a neighbor or, somebody that you care about that maybe doesn't understand how a microwave works with a fork in it? I have. I
Thankfully,
have.
thankfully, no. Lots of other problems, but not that one.
Right? Okay. So for us, I got to decide like how am I going like what is my and this is where for me like habits get fun. Because I think that like when we create a whole bunch of habits that are actually not habits, they're hobbies. Because they can't withstand the pressure. Once they withstand the pressure, I think they've kind of transposed from habits to character. or from habits to like values, or like you probably know someone that if you thought about them, there's a particular kind of like you think and you could go, oh my gosh, like if you were to think of the most trustworthy person you know, I bet you a name or the picture of that person comes to mind, and vice versa. If you said, uh, who's the least trustworthy person you know, hopefully you don't still know them, but someone comes to mind. That's a habit that has become so automatic and default that not only do they have that habit, other people kind of think of them or perceive them as that thing.
Right.
That's where I think habits like kind of take on the their rightful power. So you asked the question, how do you battle test or how do you pressure test habits? Well, um, you the easiest thing is don't try to create them under calm conditions. Allow the flexibility to know, uh, uh, I'm gonna choose to I'm gonna say eat healthier. Okay. Well, what happens if I end up staying at the office until 7:45 p.m., haven't had anything to eat all day? I know the right thing to do is to like go drive somewhere, sit down and eat a salad. I get it. But in that moment, like salad is yucky. Hamburger sounds way better. You give yourself opportunities to fail at what it is that you're trying to accomplish most. So, could you come up with, instead of having the cheeseburger, right? Again, this is where it starts to get fun and you start to negotiate with yourself. What would, if your default is a cheeseburger, extra cheese, fries, and a 32-ounce Coke, okay? What would be healthier than that version? This is where I believe we are able to start battle testing or start pressure testing our habits. If you truly want to eat healthier, could you get water instead of Coke? Totally, that's a choice. Is it the best choice? I don't know. Could we not get fries and could we get a side salad? So we still have the burger, we have a side salad, and then we got water. Is that a start? Because here's where I think most people get hung up on habits. Is most people, statistically, most people stop by January 3rd. So most people that do kind of New Year's resolutions, and I realize I just said do on a podcast. I got it. I'm probably going to be mocked and hated for that for a long time. And that's okay. Laugh at me. My kids are probably going to listen to this and laugh. Most people who do habits, right? New Year's resolutions have already not only failed. See, this is where kind of the science and the research. So I'm in the middle of doing a PhD led research study all about habits. And I'm so excited for the findings. I every day I probably bug the company that I hired to do it. Um, and I'm probably bugging the PhDs to kind of, what have you found out? What results have you gotten so far? Right. Um, because not only have most people failed, they've quit at the new habit. Not only have they stopped doing it, they've decided they're not going to continue doing it at all. So the only way that you can test your habits under pressure is to accept the fact that failure is part of you establishing that as a new habit. You are not going to be perfect every single day. You are not going to be able to like live healthier every single day. It's impossible. I wish it was. It's just not. It's going to be out late. All of the good, you sadly you ate all of the food that was at home, so there is no food at home. You're going to be caught and stuck. So forming the habit of, how do I create an environment that best prepares me? So this is the answer. You create the environment. So assume the identity of whoever or whatever it is that you're trying to be. So if you're a healthier person, then be a healthier person. If you are a runner, and maybe you're not a runner today, and I actually technically despise running, it's my least favorite form of activity by far. I hate it, but I admire runners more than anyone you know. Because if you were a runner, well, let me ask, Scott, are you a runner?
No.
Okay. So you'll understand this. You'll see people who identify as runners running while on vacation.
Right.
They'll go to the Cayman Islands, someplace gorgeous, sand beaches, the ocean, all of this. They'll pack their running shoes because in their mind, what do runners do? Runners run. So there isn't a scenario in which they don't run. Now, do they run every day? No. Some do, but most don't because they know that if they do run every single day, they're not spending any time doing recovery. And that recovery is kind of like that weird component that I think most of us, when we start talking about habits, we don't allow for any room. So if we say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, and most of us don't say, I'm going to start going to the gym. We say, I'm going to go to the gym every day for 45 minutes. Okay. Every day? Like, let's just start there. Every day? Like, what happens if you wake up and you have the flu? Like, does that mean that like you give up completely? Like you just, oh, never mind. I'm never going to the gym again because okay. What if you're out of town and maybe you have to start work before you would normally go? Or right? So just going to the gym every single day, I think is kind of a setup.
Right.
I think it's mentally a gimmick. I think it's a way that we intentionally can feel good about what it is that we've decided to change about ourselves. When in reality, we know we're not going to make it and we have an easy out. Because I I have attempted over the last I'm going to say 6 years to become healthier. At one point, I was 92 pounds heavier than I am today.
Wow.
92 pounds. Like I want that. Like I have 3 daughters. Uh, one of the three weighs more than 92 pounds. So I literally have another human that I lost, like physically, right? Like
Yeah.
crazy to think that. Because if you ask my wife, when I looked in the mirror, if I thought I was fat or overweight, or my wife loved, calling me a beast. It's a pun on obese, right? Um, I didn't see that version of me. I don't know how, because I look back at pictures now and I'm like, dang, look at that guy. That guy was way overweight. Like that wasn't healthy. So I knew when I established the habit of getting healthier and being more fit, there was no way I was going to be able to commit to it every day. Because I will tell you, when I started 92 pounds overweight, the first day I went, because back in the day, back in my heyday, I'm going to say back in my prime, I was a competitive swimmer. And I was wickedly fast. I am nowhere close to fast anymore. And when I started swimming the very first day, because I was like, if there was a sport, again, running is definitely not on the table. I despise running, but swimming, I was like, you know what? I could swim. I could get in the pool and do a couple laps. Um, I think that first day, I did four, four, and I will tell you that not only did I feel like a little bit of a failure for getting out of the pool after had only done 4 laps, the next day I was sorer in my back and my shoulders than I had probably ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
So the idea or the concept of going like, right, the religious version of I'm going to do it every day, impossible. My
Right.
body needed time to recover.
Right.
So there's where it gets tricky, right? Well, how many days do I need? Do I need 7 days and a massage? Uh, that might be a tad excessive, but work within your own schedule. I would consider it a success. And here's where most people fail, right? So if you think of the concept of how many goals are you attempting every single month or every single week? I would tell people, I think most people are attempting too many goals. They're trying to do way too much. So I try to help people go, you know what? Pick one goal. So don't try to be the very best dad in the whole world and the healthiest person on the planet and the most successful podcaster there ever was. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of pick a mountain that you're going to climb for a couple of days and then spend 90 days climbing the mountain, realizing that you're not going to climb the mountain every day. There are going to be days where you climb and then you stop and you have essentially a base camp and you're going to rest and you're going to kind of like look down and you're going to like go, wow, look how far I've come. I've come 10. In my case, I swam 4 laps. Let me ask you this, Scott. If you did something, can we play kind of like a fun role play? This is odd, but I'm going to go for it.
I love playing fun role plays.
What is something, what is a habit that you have that maybe you are A, willing to admit live on this podcast, B, are wanting to change and have possibly struggled in the past to change? Are you willing to be bold? Because that's
Yes.
a lot to ask. I totally get it.
No,
I
I'm
totally get
I'm
it.
I'm I'm an out there kind of guy. This is my
I
thing.
love it. I love it. So what would that be?
So I'm critical of myself and then I deny it and I end up being critical of my wife. And it's
Got it.
just really bad,
Okay.
and it's not even justified in most cases. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's a really it's a horrible destructive behavior that I would like to change.
Okay. So did you hear as you gave, like as you explained it, you not only identified the bad habit, but you identified how you wanted to be different. This is how you already know. Like this is that fun part for me, where you already know not how, but you know what you want to change. So if we were to take being critical of yourself, would you say that if this changed, your life would be uh, a little bit different, a lot different, or dramatically different?
Dramatically different.
Okay, so um, the value massively outweighs whatever cost you may or may not have to pay,
Oh yeah.
because you realize there's going to be a cost, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that cost is yet though.
Okay, so in this scenario, um, one of the things that I would, and again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a a coach, and I'm none of those things. I'm a guy that like loves and studies habits, right?
Yeah.
So what I would encourage you to do is to treat the bad habit as if it is the habit. Now, I realize this is kind of like reverse psychology, right? But what I want you to do is I want you to try to dissect it. Is there, so thinking critically of yourself um, sucks. I think we can all agree that. Um, Denying it sucks. And then being critical of your spouse, yeah, that's like the triple whammy, right? So, how do we, where does that start? Like if we were to construct where you being critical of yourself either came from, comes from, or is recurring to come from, where
Well, I
would
can
you
give
say
you,
that
I can
is?
give you the answer that pops in my mind, uh,
Perfect.
and that is that I'm someone who's always believed that I had huge potential to make a significant difference in the world, and every day that goes by that I don't feel I'm doing that, I feel that I'm failing.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Can I just tell you, I feel the same way. I want to be very transparent. Um, there are many days where I look at what I have accomplished, whether it's great or small, and I immediately discount everything that I've done because I'm focused on what I haven't done yet. That for me is like a regular struggle. So I this couldn't like this is awesome. So what would so if we're going to look at the failure aspect, um what would what would be the perfect if we were to design the perfect habits for this, right? Again, realizing they're bad, but we're going to go with the perfect habits. What would be the perfect scenario in which we could start then constructing habits, right? Because habits are like the architecture. They're kind of like the steel. They're, of the bridge. They're kind of how it was constructed and how it's designed. Realizing the whole point was to basically make a bridge. So for you, what would success look like?
Um, Getting engaged with, leaders of the world and helping them understand and relate and identify with the fact that uh, what they do to anybody else, they do to themselves and everybody else, and we all rise and fall together, and we're all in this together, and that nobody sustainably benefits at another's expense, and that
Okay.
it's time to be honest with ourselves and admit that, you know, stop looking outside for things that only exist inside, like power.
Mm-hmm.
People look for to
We
satisfy
do.
their need for power by trying to get power over other people, but power over
Yep.
ourselves is the only power that ever satisfies. And just be able to kind of
Oh,
be engaged with world leaders, whether they be political, sports, entertainment, whatever,
yeah.
and coach them in accepting and being an example of that acceptance of their own responsibility and power in a way that they inspire others to do the same. And that's what success looks like for me.
Okay. Can I dig in just a little bit?
All you want.
How many? So, um, it sounds like again, and this is my terminology. So if I'm incorrect at any point, please stop me and correct me. Okay. If I were to distill down what it sounds like you want, is you want influence over others to help them be better, do better, live better, act better, and kind of know that it's like inside of them. Is that a generalization? Am I relatively close?
Yes, but taking a step back, what I didn't
Okay.
say and should have said was is
Yes.
that I'm very clear that all of this will happen almost as an unintended consequence of me taking that responsibility for myself.
Ooh. Okay.
And
So.
so I understand that, I mean, I meditate every day. I mean,
Yep.
I write books and every book I write is a book I feel I need to read.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm working on myself, and I can see in my world um, the positive impact that my example has, and so
Okay.
I know that it's working on a small scale that I can recognize.
Okay. I appreciate that. So, if we were to quantify, right, like if you were to give me a number of people that you were able to kind of like have influence over, how many people would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I'll say 50. I'm pulling a number out of
Okay.
this. I don't
Sure.
really,
Yep.
I mean, you don't really know,
Yeah, you don't, right? Totally. You totally don't know, right?
yeah.
So perfect example, what you already did. You're able to look back on kind of like either what traction or whatever it is that you've had, right? If you were able to look backwards and say, okay, to date, how many people's lives have I been able to impact thus far? What would that number be?
Pulling a number out of the sky. I would say thousands.
Oh, okay. So thousands. Okay. So you've
But I mean,
helped
that's just, I
thousands.
mean, I don't know. I'm just pulling a number out of the sky. I mean, I have no way of knowing.
Totally. Totally. Right. Um, I would be willing to bet um, that the thoughts, the inspiration, the care at which you share that which you feel like matters most to you, right? I already know um, that it has been valuable and that it is valuable to people. I don't have to question that. Is it valuable to everybody?
No,
Well, we both know the answer to that, right? No.
no.
Um, Sean Ailes, a wonderful human being. Um, he has since passed on this life, but he was a wonderful human being. Um, he uh, he was confined to a wheelchair for most of his life, and he still found a way to kind of impact other people's lives. And he had a metaphor, he had a saying, he had a something that has always, once I heard it, it has always stuck with me, and I always attribute it to him. Um, Basically, uh, if you are, I'm going to say, the Alaskan lifeguard, the Coast Guard, and you are in a helicopter and you hear a boat go down, I think most people would pretend to be the helicopter and rush out and attempt to help. I think most people would. I really do. Um, I think most people want to do good. Most people want to help, and most people want to be better. The problem is when you get there, let's say that the boat had 10 people on it, they're all flailing in the water. You have a helicopter, and you can only fit five. Who do you save?
That's
Tough
tough.
question.
That's tough.
Tough, right? Tough. One could go down the route of, well, we could start auctioning off spots based on how much money you have. Terrible idea. Wouldn't work, right? We could go based off of age. Well, if you have longer to live, then we could do all of this gymnastic math in our head. Sean distilled it down very simply and very easily. He says, you save the people who are swimming towards the helicopter. It's really like as
Yeah,
funny as it
yeah,
is, it's that simple,
yeah.
right? So for you, um, finding and seeing those people and acknowledging those people would be the habit, right? Because if you have a and again, I'm going to use a very good friend of mine. So I have a friend who has some awesome, well thought out, I'm going to say, material or content,
Right,
um, and they publish it, um, and then they kind of, I call it a drive-by publishing or drive-by content blasting, right? It's a lot like vomit. They basically like, right? It's like projectile. They throw up and then they drive away,
right. Okay.
um, because they don't want to know that there were only five people that commented on their particular post, because they're somehow embarrassed that only five people found their post exciting, and one of them happened to be their neighbor or their wife or their mother. So in reality, there were only four. And so, because of that hesitation of acknowledging, my mother, until the day that she died, was my biggest fan. There was nothing I couldn't do in this world outside possibly murder, that would have made her doubt me. No matter what it was that I tried, she was always my biggest fan. And sadly, she was the last person I wanted to be acknowledged by before she passed. Nowadays, I would die. I dream of moments where she acknowledges or she's the first one in line to, like, right? So I think a lot of it is about perspective. Because if your true goal is 50 and you make a goal for 90 days, just 90 days. If I can get 5 people, just 5, which is 10% of the 50, 5 people to, and again, this is where it gets tricky, to somehow communicate back to you that the influence that you've given them, the inspiration that you've given them, the something, right? You can then somehow keep score. Because I think a lot of us, at least for me, one of the reasons that I tend to get down on myself, I tend to look at myself as, some version of a failure, is because the moment a win or a run goes up on the scorecard, I immediately dismiss it. Well, they would have bought my stupid program. They would have paid me to speak to them. They, whatever. I
Yeah,
immediately,
I call it the yes, but.
yeah, I immediately kind of try to make it as if it didn't happen instead of savoring it for just a moment. Now, uh, I have done this in particular. I actually brought this just on purpose. So I have 2 offices. I'm at this office today, so I don't have these here. This is terrible to show them this way, but this is a baggie. It's not cocaine or anything like that. It's rocks from the ocean. I can look at each of these rocks universally, and I can look at them individually, and they all have a story to tell. They're a memento, something about each of those rocks. I can go right back to a particular situation, a particular memory, a particular something that ties me back in with my purpose. Because oftentimes I have a couple days where I go through and I don't feel like I'm tethered to my purpose at all. I feel like I'm kind of like adrift in the ocean. I'm just kind of out there doing my thing. I use those as I'm going to call them a tethering tool to kind of reconnect and kind of like, you know what? I have done things. I have done good. Uh, I am helping people. Have I helped as many as I want? No, but that doesn't take away the fact that I am helping people. Sean, Sean and his analogy of the helicopter, I have probably told hundreds of times, and every time I give attribution to him because it was his thought. Now, he may not have been the first one to, think of that, but he was the first one I ever heard use it. So,
Right.
and until the day I die, I'm going to give him credit. Now, most people sadly don't give credit. Sadly, most people sometimes want to take it as their own, and that's okay. I'm not your judge. I don't have to judge that. That's not on me, right? But by sharing what Sean told me, am I not expanding his influence just a little?
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is, right? If we look at kind of like where those thoughts come from, where that happens, if you look at basically that going back to being critical on yourself, often, uh, usually when we compare ourselves to either someone else or some other version of us that hasn't arrived yet, are we not usually disappointed?
Always.
Oh, I always, right?
Yeah.
Because in our minds, again, we create these scenarios that are basically like under imperfect conditions. They're calm. There's nothing going on, right? There's no pressure. So for you, I don't know what the answer is for this question. I'm going to use a theory. If you are publishing content every single day, it gives you a couple of observations. One, what message that you are sending is landing with your current audience? That's number one. Number two is that message growing your audience? Or is it staying the same, or is it actually contracting? Because sometimes, at least from kind of like an influence level, if we are trying to influence others, obviously we're not going to help everybody. So that's impossible. But if every single post, and I'm using this as a theory, right? Let's say you post on Instagram and you post, once a week, and every post gets 300 likes, 47 comments, and 2 shares. Well, I would consider that not growth. I would consider that maintenance. That the current group that you've found is kind of like, yeah, they're happy with the content, they're happy to, click the button, they're happy to whatever. However, something about it, right? If we go back to kind of the analogy of the comics and them telling the jokes and them landing and them, maybe not being super funny and being willing to be off base and go, wait a minute, I need to figure out a better way to tell this joke. All of a sudden, that self-realization. So one of my favorite, I'm going to call it automatic habits, is radical self-awareness. So, uh, uh, I have a superpower. I sometimes I talk about it, sometimes I don't, but I have a superpower. It's a two-sided coin. It has a negative and it has a positive. It's very polarizing. I have had to turn all of my attention towards my superpower because I think that what you focus on expands. So if all I'm focused on is all of the negatives get bigger. So I focus on the positives. And if I can focus on the positives, even for a short period of time, my ability to try again, because isn't that really what a habit is? Is you're willing to try again tomorrow.
Okay.
If you want influence, if you want to be a voice in the world that people listen to, you obviously have to write, I'm going to say, articles or a blog post or have a podcast, right? And you have to have some individual thought, something that makes you kind of like, huh, right? Like, because I have to gravitate towards something. So if you basically say everything everybody else does and you have no independent or unique thought, I believe that type of influence is going to struggle, because there are those that are going to be louder than others, and they're going to win sometimes just because they're louder. There are going to be some of those that win because they have more money to spend on ads. So therefore, it's going to look like they're winning. When in reality, I think if we come down to the basis of it, independent thought. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to, like, be as brilliant as Albert Einstein and have theses about how the universe and, black holes evolve and stuff like that's way beyond, like, I'll use myself as an example. I focus entirely on habits. And I don't even focus on the habit. Like, the habit is kind of like the what to do. The how to do it is the system that you put in place. The idea that your habits are more of a structure, they are more of support for everything that you build on top of it. So when people often ask me, like, hey, tell me, what are some of the best habits I need to have? I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to build. Some of it might be steel. Some of it might be, rivets. Some of it might be a joist. Some of it might be, it all depends on what you're trying to build. And then you build the habits for eventually what you're trying to become or who you're ultimately becoming. If we go back to the idea of runners, runners have embraced the identity of being a runner. So runners run. Runners run on vacation. Runners run in the rain. Runners run in the snow. Runners run, like, all of these crazy things. Runners, purchase the right equipment. They invest their money in the right ways. Even though I love shoes, I would never consider buying like a pair of specialized running shoes. Like, to me, it would be comical because I don't run.
Right.
Like, my shoes serve a particular purpose for me. Spending money on running shoes is a waste to me. But to runners, they look at it and they develop and they embrace, they embody that identity of runners. So for you, right, if we come back to kind of like, who is Scott? Who is the version of Scott who is not critical of themselves? I believe that person is powerful. I believe that person is brave. I believe that person is committed to what they believe, even if they have to share it thousands of times and no one listens. Like I love my son was actually on season 1 of Mr. Beast games. It's a wonderful fact. I love it because I got to see him on national TV. Amazing, right? He was only on just a couple blips. He was not a main character. I did not, prior to that, I did not know very much about Mr. Beast. The fact that Mr. Beast was on YouTube for how long before he even had 1,000 followers or subscribers or whatever they call them on YouTube, right? Is inconsequential to the fact that he never gave up to continually trying to, like, what was his, like, right perception? I want to make the best videos I possibly can. So every video, the goal was, how do I make it better? How do I make it stickier? How do I make people watch longer? How do I make, like, whatever the goal, right? But he never stopped making videos. And now we look at it and we're like, oh my gosh, look at the fame, look at the influence, look at the whatever, right? One of my favorite videos, which I watch because I have a 13-year-old daughter and she loves Mr. Beast, is one of the videos. And again, I apologize if I get the dates wrong, but he recorded a video, I'm going to say 10 years ago, that was basically like a video to himself 10 years in the future.
Wow.
And he basically was like, I wonder how many subscribers you will have. I wonder if you will have broken the $1 million subscriber, right? Like, I wonder if you'll have 10,000, like, because he had no idea. I would highly encourage you to go find that and watch it and then basically commit to do that to yourself. Publish. Again, whatever platform you're on, whether it's a podcast, a video, whatever, publish a video to yourself in a year's time from now, in 2 years, in 5 years. You create whatever, right? Whatever time frame it is that you feel
And so
comfortable
this
doing.
video is what does this video entail
So
again?
the video entails essentially you're kind of spending a little bit of time dreaming about where you're going to be in 5 years.
Okay.
And I'll guarantee you, let's say that you say, you know what, in 5 years time, I want to be an influencer over 500 people. Let's say it's that big, right? I'll guarantee you it'll be bigger if you lay the foundation, you create the habits, you create, right, like the routine of not giving up. Because again, what is a pressure tested habit? It's a habit that works on your worst day.
Right. Right.
So if it can work on your worst day, it can work every other day. And so if your worst day, I'll give you my worst day. My worst day is some days I wake up and I have absolutely no desire. Energy is completely gone. I have no desire to even get out of bed or do anything. None. Depression like you would not believe. So much so that I some days wish I could just lay in bed and give up and somehow be taken from this earth. That debilitating, right? So what is a habit that survives that day? I'm gonna say this, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but it is crawling, not walking, not skipping, not jumping. It is crawling from my bed to the shower and then laying on the floor in the shower to simply take a shower that day, because that's how I start every day, is I take a shower. That is then attempting to brush my teeth. Am I going to be the best teeth brusher on the planet? No. But I'm going to do the very best that I can that day. All of these things that have basically become automatic. Obviously, I know that if I don't eat, I'm going to be grouchy. So I have to eat something. But if I have no desire to eat, like nothing sounds good. I actually have some back there. They're called Built bars. I'm not endorsed or sponsored by them, anything like that. I have just found them because I love them. They're very high in protein, um, and they taste like marshmallow. And so that one is actually like salted caramel. I like salted caramel. I can eat that because it kind of tastes like a candy bar, kind of tastes like a marshmallow, and it doesn't taste like sawdust or chalk. So it's not terrible. And I realize that I'm giving my body a little bit of protein, something to kind of continue moving, right? And so then after getting out of the shower, it might take me an hour. So that's okay. Like, again, I acknowledge and I accept that I am not going to be my very best self every single day. On my very best days, my expectations and my um, radical self awareness is way higher than it is on those days. But guess what? I still consider those days, those very terrible days for me, when I don't want to do anything. I want to give up. I want to hide from the entire world. I want to hide from myself.
Been there.
Those are the days where I am so gracious with myself that every moment that I accomplish anything, I am literally grateful and thankful. Not that it had been done or that I did it, but that I did my best in that moment. That for me has been overwhelmingly um, uh, powerful because I know that that day is going to end eventually and
Right.
that tomorrow is not going to be the same. Sadly, with my superpower, every day is a little bit different. So I never get to, I never get Groundhog Day, sadly. I wish I did some days. At least if they were good, if they were good
Right.
days, I would love Groundhog Day. Bad days, no, I don't want that over and over. So I know that like, right, like incrementally, today I might have 72%. Tomorrow I might have 15. The next day I might have 45. The next day I might have 91. Like whatever that day, right? Whatever I get, I'm going to do the absolute best I can with what I have. And here's the component of it. I'm going to accept whatever that I get done, whatever, right? Whatever goals I have for that day, whatever challenges, whatever I decide to do is the very best I can do.
Yeah.
I will tell you that on those very bad days, I am more on guard at how I treat not only myself, my spouse, my children, my employees, my coworker. Like I'm more on guard because I already know I'm in a right, like mood wise, I'm not in a great mood. I'm not in a
Right,
good
right,
place.
right, right. You got to be careful. Yeah.
So what automatic habit triggers, right? Immediately for me, empathy for myself so I don't have to regret the rest of the day. I can't believe I said that to her. I can't believe because again, when I'm at my lows, uh, I don't have a lot of patience for certain things. And it isn't that I don't have empathy. It isn't that I like don't want to listen, but like I just get a little short. And so I have to be more on guard on those days about that tendency to maybe react with, a little bit of vinegar when in reality, uh, all I had to do was acknowledge. I didn't need to give them an attaboy. I didn't need to criticize them. I simply need to be like, okay, so what are you going to do next? Right? Like they weren't asking me if it was okay. They were just informing me. It's those little things that I think as we kind of narrow down on, as we look at like again, create the identity of the person that we want to be, and then start living it. That's how habits survive under pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten just, through the course of this, I've gotten some clarity on how I can narrow the focus of my message and what I want to share, which is essentially um,
Powerful.
ownership of the um, impact of the example that we are.
Okay. Love it. Because again, once you get really clear about what it is and what your message is and what you're trying to send out, I do believe that your people will find you. Because
Yeah,
I believe that we are all, no matter what stage we're at, no matter where we're at, we are all looking for, right, something just above the horizon, something to inspire us, something to motivate us, something to call us on the carpet. All of those are, right, like things that someone is asking for. Well, if I just had someone to hold me accountable, I would reach my goals faster. Cool. Then find an accountability group. And if you can't find one, start one. Because I guarantee you there are lots of people that want to be held accountable for things. Like, easy done, right? Um, if you want to be better at running, I pray that you don't. Uh, there's lots of running clubs. There's, right, like there's training, there's video, there's all sorts of. So just becoming specialized in what it is that your message is and what it is that you want to do, and then constantly doing your very best, I believe gives you power. And that power
yeah,
will effectively, that power effectively, right, gets you to influencing those 50, which you said was, right, that initial goal, which was that, like, I would feel like a success if I got there. Well, I will tell you that success is often its biggest thief. Because when you get to 50, what's it going to do?
I say
It's going to
100.
say, whoa, like I thought it was going to take a long time, or I thought it was going to be harder, or I thought, whatever. And it's going to try to rob you of whatever that 50 means. And so therefore it's going to move the goalpost. Now,
Right.
I am a huge fan of readjusting goals as you go along. Totally, right? But that doesn't mean that, like, you lose the idea or the insight of what do I do when I actually hit that goal. So what do I do, Scott, when I hit 50? Uh I might need to have some form of a celebration. I might need to create a memento. That's what all of these rocks are for me. They're a memento based on when I did something that was very important to me. So that way they never get lost. Those rocks, as weird as they are, mean something way more than rocks to most people. They are memories, they are impact. And if I'm having what I would consider a down day, I can literally grab one of those rocks. Again, I'm very tactile. I don't know if you've been noticing or not, but I've been playing with Play-Doh through our whole podcast interview. It's a way that I self-soothe. I'm totally okay admitting I don't, whatever. Um, and I can touch something that connects me to a past success that then gives me the courage to try again. Yes, I might have failed today. Yes, I might have failed in the last 10 minutes. Yes, I might have failed on that last phone call. Yes, my last sales call, like, whatever, wherever you're coming from. Yeah, the last thing you did might have not worked out. So do you just bag it? Or do you simply say, you know what? I'm laying the foundation, the identity of who it is that I want to become. And that person doesn't give up. Like, again, you instill your own values here. This is not like I'm not trying to put any values that you don't want in there. But I think most people, like, want progress. I think most people want to benefit and help others. I think most people want some form of financial, some version of financial security. What that means, it's all relative. And I think most people want to do better than they're doing yesterday. Those, I think, are kind of like pretty common amongst most people. And
Yep.
then it gets into how you do that. Right? Uh, if I were asked to do the research study that I'm doing right now, like actually me do this, like go out and interview, no way. Like, I don't have the skills and the ability. Like, I don't have the patience. I don't have the tolerance. Like, that is not something that I could do. So therefore, don't sign up to do one of those, or recognize early that that's not something that I would, thrive at. I would detest every moment. It would be like if you asked me to, hey, Kristoff, let's commit to running a marathon. Oh, Scott, no. Like, at least I know that that's the best answer. Um, could my wife or my kids somehow get me to do one with them? Sure. Because then it's not about me, right? But my goal would be simply not to die. I'll run the marathon as long as, like, and I'm not going to win. And I don't care about the time. And the whole goal for dad is not die. That's it. Then that, right. But what I've done, kind of sneakily, is by doing that, I've actually set myself up for success, because that's a goal I could hit.
Right.
At least I hope I hit it, right? Heaven forbid that I do run a marathon with one of my daughters and I do die. This podcast right here will bite me in the butt, 10 years from now, however many years from now, and I will gratefully accept it, because I would have been doing something that I had committed to. I knew what the risks were. I knew, right? Like, I knew what the goal was. The goal was don't die. Sadly, I failed. That does not mean that I'm a failure. That simply means that I'm human. And if we create habits around, kind of like pressure, you have the opportunity to actually thrive and succeed. Versus if every time pressure is added and you crumble like that bridge, there's a reason you keep coming back around to the same typical, like, headaches or hurdles or walls. That foundation isn't strong enough to overcome whatever particular hurdle that was. Dude, I hope this has been valuable. This has been awesome for me.
Really, it has been. I mean, for one, I mean, I really, as I said a few minutes ago, it's it's really helped me narrow my focus, and I get that I've had people, marketing people say, keep narrowing your focus, and so it's helped me there. And then the
Okay.
other place where, um, I still have to do some more work to feel I have my arms around it is reducing being critical. I mean, I've gone from I made some progress. Like, I used to be, when someone would give me a compliment, I would say yes, but
Yeah.
like last night I did a speech, and a number of people came up to me after the speech and they told me that it really impacted them, and they thought it was they got a lot out of it and stuff. And I just stood there and said, thank you,
Yeah.
And and so that was, a change in behavior from when I used to go, yes, but.
That makes sense.
And so, I've been chipping away at it for a long time.
Yeah.
But what I find with a lot of the not so great patterns is that, boy, it takes a while to put a better pattern in place. I mean,
It does.
it's
Well,
the chipping away process.
you've become so comfortable that you're sitting in the hot tub, that,
Yeah,
like, the thought or the concept of getting out of the hot tub when it's 60 degrees outside or 55, no thanks. Like, where's the robe? Like, I'll get out if there's a robe. I'll get out if like, I can get in the
yeah,
house
yeah,
early, or whatever. When in reality, there is a period of time where you are going to be nothing but uncomfortable. Nothing, like, it's going to feel off because you haven't, like, if I were to go out and run 5 miles today,
right.
uh it would look like a giraffe that was just born. Like, you would see people, like, videoing it and be like, this guy, like, either has some form of epilepsy, like, he must have some kind of, like, physical problem, because he looks like a duck, or whatever. Because I don't. Whereas if you watch, like, marathoners, they have, and again, this is why I admire the identity. I don't admire the running. They know that they have 5 different sets of muscles in their legs, and they alternate running on those 5 sets of muscles
Wow.
throughout the marathon.
Wow.
So, like, right? Because you can run on your toes, and that uses a different set. You can run on your heels. You can run on the outside of your foot. You can run on the inside of the foot. Like, already knowing that, right? Like, I could If I wanted to invest the time, I could probably run a little bit better than most, but I have no desire to do it. But that's where runners excel is they get down the road of knowing that to where they use 5 different sets because I would burn myself out in 2 miles. Let's be honest. I don't even think I could run like stop to finish with like run, not jog, not, kind of hustle, like run. I don't think I could run a mile. I really don't. I'd like to lie and say I could, but I don't think I could. I think I'd get winded and like, you know,
Right.
yeah, no. But if I wanted to, right, I would probably start with running 500 feet and being okay with 500 feet. And then what is right? Like, okay, now I'm going to run 1,000 feet.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not talking about like today and then tomorrow and then the next day. Like I, there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen. I don't want to ruin a knee. Right. Like, I mean, again, I don't, and at some point, if I realize like, whoa, like when I was 92 pounds overweight, uh, there were some workouts in the gym where, no, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to stop. And I would go home and I would rest and I would, put a hot pad or ice pack on or, whatever. And after a couple of days, I would eventually go back and I would get right back into the routine. And getting back into the routine doesn't mean that I have to start with, lifting 200 pounds. Start with 10 pounds, start with 5, start with your arms. Like I remember when I started, this was embarrassing, but comical. They had me do body weight squats. That's it. No bar, no weights, just my big, large body squatting, right? And all they were worried about was form. I remember I did maybe 5 and my thighs were on fire, like on fire from 5. Does that mean like, again, I have hindsight. I can look back and go, wow, like, you know what? Like that was something that I stuck with. Now my routine, I wouldn't call it a habit. My routine is I do 100 a morning
Wow.
of simple body weight squats, right?
Wow.
Uh, okay. And now it's become how many days in a row can I do it? Because I've gotten to the point where it's actually not that difficult anymore. Like it was like getting to like 10, 100. Are you joking? Okay. Again, the goal, right? If the goal from the beginning was let's do 100 squats, um, I will say this: willpower, motivation, pizzazz, charisma, right? Um, I could have probably done 30 and absolutely destroyed every muscle in my legs, and then not been able to walk the next day, like physically, right? Because the muscle, like, and then uh the desire to ever go back to the gym would have been -5.
Right.
Whereas now, a little bit of burn, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of like, kind of that, like enough to where I know I'm building muscle. B, I'm like, I kind of like that feeling now, right? Like I've had to create that. I've had to develop it. It wasn't something I loved in the beginning. And now it's like, okay, like because I know what it's doing and I know how I'm going to feel, not the day after, the 2 or 3 days later, right? Like when we rotate and we do back and then we do shoulders and then we do, arms and we do legs, like there are some days where I virtually hate my trainer, hate her. But that's because she's doing her job. She's doing exactly what I asked her to do. Make me healthier, make me stronger, make me, all of these things. And all of a sudden, that's what we do. So that uncomfortableness of you knowing that you need to narrow down, knowing that you need to focus a little bit more, knowing that you need to, right, position yourself a little bit differently, totally uncomfortable. I love it. Because I look at that as like you're inside your comfort zone bubble, and success is on those 50 are on the other side. You're not going to get them staying in the bubble. It's going to require you to step outside. It's going to require you to do some things that you maybe haven't done. Maybe you aren't comfortable. Maybe you don't know how to do them. Great. No one said you had to be the very best. No one said that you had to be like, the most professional or the expert. No, like you do better than you did yesterday.
Right.
And if you do that enough days in a row, pretty soon people will look at you and go, this guy's figured it out. And you're over there going, I haven't figured anything out. I'm still figuring it out. Right. But that's because of perception. They haven't seen all the times that you have tried and failed and failed and failed and failed and continually gotten back up and said, you know what? Um, I don't care if it takes a year.
Yeah.
I don't care if it takes 5. I'm committed to, right? Like, again, I look at Mr. Beast and I go, here's a kid that was making YouTube videos, and I've watched some of his very, very beginning ones. They are terrible. Like, like painstakingly, like cringe, like the fact that I'm watching and still watching is almost like offensive, right? Like they're so bad that like respect is like, just turn it off. Like, it sucks, turn it off. But I wanted like, right? It was more at that point for my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like you've seen his greatest, newest, Amazon, whatever, budget of $100 million. Cool. What was his budget when he used the camera on his old crappy phone, and he used like, the computer that his dad gave him, and he did it in his bedroom. Like the difference right there is the only difference is he never stopped. Right now, again, he didn't do a video every single day because he knew that it took time in between videos to make them better, to edit them different, to I need this shot or I need that shot, right? To become a better filmmaker, which some people have a desire to do, some people don't. That's beside the point. The fact is that all of the time that he was kind of like in between video to the next video, he was trying to make the next one better, not the best. And I think that's where most people get stuck is we're trying to make everything we do the best because we're the judge of like what we put out or what content we create or the thoughts that we think, right? And so therefore it's like, yeah, like that's not very good. Okay. So then do this one today and make tomorrow's better or make next week's better or
Right.
whatever your cadence is.
Right.
Scott, this was awesome, dude. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I just, one of the things that really strikes me is that the unique contribution that everybody makes, and I maybe you couldn't see it on the video, but there was a time through the course of this recording where I mean tears were flowing, and it was really just uh, you being you, really helped me. So
Well,
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that. I
And
am I am honored. Um, what I want to say is this. I'm glad that I'm part of your story, but you are the one that has to do all the hard work.
indeed,
So remember me for like this much, but remember you for everything else that you've done.
appreciate that.
Fair?
Well, absolutely, absolutely. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap it up?
No, I think I've given them like a smorgasbord of Kristoff. They're probably tired of me. They're probably like, "Holy crap! Like, when is this guy going to stop?" But they haven't stopped listening because they just, for whatever reason, there's something about me they just can't let go. Um, I simply want to, I want to remind people with this is that um, I love the premises, not the premises, the premise of your new direction. That everybody has something of value, everybody has something to share, and that like the sooner you kind of get to the meat of it, the better. I love that concept because I agree. Um, I think that most of us, like I said, you were like, gosh, like, this is you were very brave and you admitted, right? Something that some people would probably never admit. At the same time, you're I love the fact that you're compassionate enough to know that like A, you're still a work in progress, but B, and this is probably the more important thing, you're committed to do something different. Where I think some people they've just accepted the fact, they're kind of like resigned. They're like, I'm done. I don't really care. You know, what it is what it is. You're still like that desire, I think, is one of the strongest desires. And as long as you have that, you can figure out how your habits can hold under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing I have done is I have filled my life up with people that are dedicated to lifelong learning and improvement. And so that's
That's important.
helpful. But
Yeah,
all
it
right.
is.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you again so much. I'm going to send you a copy of all of this for you to use however you deem
Awesome.
appropriate.
I'm going to publish it.
Well, excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so
And
much.
great. Okay.